Hello, and thank you for watching our webinar on the Literacy Coaches and Reading Specialists, or LCRS program. Today, we will give an overview of the LCRS program, go over the allowed expenditures, go over the reports, and then we'll go ahead and close out. This technical assistance webinar is provided by the Professional Learning Support Division at the California Department of Education. My name is Jennifer Howarder, and I am an Education Programs Consultant in the Professional Learning Innovations Office. Now let's go into an overview of the LCRS program. Assembly Bill 181, Section 137, Chapter 52, Statutes of 2022 authorizes the LCRS program. The sum of $250 million was appropriated from the general fund to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, or the SSPI, for the LCRS program. Of the total funding, the SSPI allocated $225 million to eligible school sites to develop school literacy programs, employ and train literacy coaches and reading and literacy specialists, and develop and implement interventions for students in need of targeted literacy support. Senate Bill 114, Section 104, Chapter 48 of 2023 authorizes an additional sum of $250 million to augment the LCRS program. Of the total funding, $248 million was allocated to eligible school sites for the same purposes as the first allocation. So let's move into allowable uses of funds. These allowable uses provide the structure for the reports that we'll be asking you to complete. LCRS funds are to be used for developing school literacy programs, employing and training literacy coaches and reading specialists, and developing and implementing interventions for students in need of targeted literacy support. The authorizing statute provides additional information on expenditures for school literacy programs. This includes developing a school literacy plan that includes goals and actions to improve literacy acquisition for pupils in preschool, if applicable, and grades kindergarten through 3 inclusive. The plan shall identify metrics to measure progress toward the goals and actions. Hiring at least one literacy coach or reading and literacy specialist per school to support educators and pupils in improving literacy instruction and pupil outcomes. And continuing, increasing access to evidence-based literacy instruction through strategies including but not limited to any of the following: providing bilingual reading specialists to support dual language acquisition and English language development, or ELD programs, developing and implementing culturally responsive curriculum and instruction, providing professional development, or PD, for educators and school leaders in literacy instruction and the use of data to identify and support struggling pupils, providing PD for educators and school leaders regarding the implementation of the English language arts, English language development framework, and the use of data to support effective instruction. And continuing, establishing an evidence-based family literacy initiative, which may include but is not limited to the following: family literacy plans that identify literacy and biliteracy goals, benchmarks, and roles for all family members; family literacy home visiting programs, including but not limited to Promotora, family literacy outreach specialists. Local educational agencies, or LEAs, may establish literacy and biliteracy home visits to engage families in how to best support their pupils and every family member in reaching their literacy goals. And finally, extended day, summer, or weekend family institutes related to literacy and biliteracy. LEAs are encouraged to work with in-house expanded learning programs to establish literacy and biliteracy support programs and literacy enrichment programs during after-school, weekend, and summer hours. And public library family literacy partnerships, including but not limited to digital tools to support whole family literacy. Now let's start talking about the reporting requirements. Annual reports will be due no later than September 30th of each fiscal year. A reporting template is available on the CDE LCRS webpage at http://www.cde.ca.gov/ci/pl/lcrsprogram.asp. The CDE is requiring annual reporting as a response to requests for detailed information in the legislative report, to justify future funding opportunities, and to confirm funding is being appropriately used and tracked at the local level. This report is at the LEA level. However, we are asking for site level data as well. That site level data will be reported in the site level data collection spreadsheets. In addition to completing the report online, you will email this spreadsheet to plio@cde.ca.gov. Here are the reporting deadlines for Cohort 1. This upcoming report is due September 30th of 2025, and your reporting activities between July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. And here are the reporting deadlines for Cohort 2. Again, this upcoming report is due September 30th of 2025, and you are also reporting activities between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th of 2025. What makes a complete report? Remember that while you are submitting this at the LEA level, we are also asking for site level data as well. So there are two parts to this report. Firstly, you will be submitting the online LEA level report, and then you will be submitting the site level data collection spreadsheet to plio@cde.ca.gov. To access the online report, we will be sending login information to our primary contact on file, which is usually the superintendent. If you have not received it or have lost it, please contact us. After you access the online reports, remember to answer all applicable questions on each page. Answers will be automatically saved when you go to the next page. If you want to manually save, you can select the Save button. And at the end of the report, you must select the Submit button to finalize your submission. Now let's talk about the report itself. The report has several sections, including contact information, a funds report overview, literacy coaches and reading specialist information, other hiring information, school and family literacy plan, professional learning, and the submission itself. Again, the online report collects data at the LEA level. Some LEAs may be in both Cohort 1 and Cohort 2. For the online report, since it is at the LEA level, you will combine both cohorts. The site level spreadsheet will give you the opportunity to break things out by cohort. So first is contact information. This is pretty straightforward. We are asking you to input the contact information for the program administrator of the LCRS program. This person will be our primary contact for any questions we have. Next, we are asking you to input the contact information for the fiscal agent if they are different from the program administrator. This person will be our primary contact for any budget questions we have or budget information. If the program administrator is the same as the fiscal agent, you do not have to enter the information twice. For the funds report overview, we're asking you to provide the dollar amount of the LCRS funds used for this fiscal year. Remember that if you're in both cohorts, you will combine the spending for both cohorts. If you haven't spent LCRS funds this year, you can report the total as 0. However, if you haven't spent any LCRS funds this year, we will ask you to provide a reason why and your anticipated time frame for spending the funds. And finally, we are asking for a brief executive summary of this year's activities, including how funds were spent to employ literacy coaches and reading specialists, how funds were used to develop and implement school literacy programs, and how expenditures impacted student literacy achievement, including for student subgroups. For the following sections asking for hiring information on literacy coaches and reading specialists, please note that we are asking you to report separately for coaches, reading specialists, bilingual reading specialists, and then any other positions you may have hired, such as interventionists. Do not combine position types. Please report them separately. For the literacy coaches, reading specialists, and bilingual reading specialist sections, you'll report similar information: the number hired, the amount of funding used to hire, The amount of funding used for other purposes related to these positions, such as training existing staff to become literacy coaches, or providing tuition for staff to earn a specialist credential or added authorization. You'll get an opportunity to provide additional details on how you used funding for these purposes, and whether services were provided by a vendor, and if so, the vendor names and specific services provided. Additionally, we will ask you to report how many reading specialists hired have either the added authorization or the specialist credential. And finally, we will ask you to report on any successes or challenges. We have included check boxes for commonly stated successes and challenges, and will then ask that you provide additional details on any success or challenge selected. Note that if you have not hired staff for some or all of these positions, you would simply indicate 0 in the appropriate box. As mentioned, we are now asking for information on other positions you have hired using LCRS funds. Please report the types and number of positions hired using LCRS funds. And if you select Other, you'll need to let us know what positions you hired that don't fit into our categories. For the School and Family Literacy Plan, you can indicate yes or no if you have used funds to develop and/or implement a school and family literacy plan. If you select yes, we will ask you additional questions. If no, you will skip to the next section of the report. For the School Literacy Plan and Family Literacy Support section, much of what we'll ask you is in the site-level data collection spreadsheet. However, in this LEA online report, we'll ask about the number of public libraries your district has partnered with to provide family literacy support. We are also asking for you to identify the reading and/or literacy intervention programs, strategies, and models that your LEA implements at LCRS sites. You can check the appropriate boxes, and an other option is provided in case you implement one that isn't on the list. Because these school literacy plan and family supports categories can have a lot of different elements to it, we are asking you to report on the expenditure type, amount, and details for both categories. This is organized by object code. Finally, as in the last section, we will ask you to report on successes and challenges. This professional learning section starts out with providing an overview of the professional learning you've offered using LCRS funds. Note that this does not include the professional learning that you have received from the county office leads for the LCRS Educator Training Grant. It is only the professional learning that you have offered using your LCRS funds. We will ask you about the number of participants, how many of those participants were district-based, how many of them were site-based, the total number of professional learning hours offered, and the total number of professional learning opportunities offered. Then we ask for a breakdown of the classification of the participants, including classroom teachers, literacy coaches, reading specialists, administrators, paraprofessionals, and other classified staff. Finally, we will ask you what type of professional learning was offered. You can select the ELA/ELD framework and literacy instruction, culturally responsive curriculum and instruction, and use of data to support effective instruction and struggling students. You can select one or all of these categories. Depending on the category you choose, you will be directed to that part of the report. Regardless of the ones you select, we ask you to report on the same elements: the number of professional learning events in that category, the professional classification of the participants, and the total expenditure amount for that category. After you provide information on those categories, we will ask similar questions as the other sections: the expenditure type, amount, and detail, and any successes and/or challenges. Finally, you can submit the online LEA reports. The authorizing official must type their name in the field to certify the accuracy of the report. Select Next and then Submit. You will be provided with a confirmation number and a printable version of your responses. Okay, now let's switch over to the site-level data collection spreadsheets. I am going to provide an overview of what we're asking, and then I'll take you on a tour of the spreadsheets. Remember that in this spreadsheet, we are collecting at the site level and by cohort. So for cohort 1, we're asking about funding spends, literacy plans, and assessment data. And for cohort 2, the same thing, funding spent, literacy plans, and assessment data. For each cohort, you will complete funding spent. Remember, you are doing this for cohort 1 and cohort 2. If you have sites in only one cohort, you will only complete the worksheets for that particular cohort. Regardless, you'll enter the site name, the county, district, school, or CDS codes, and the dollar amount of LCRS funds used this reporting period. Next is school literacy plan and family literacy supports. If you have not completed any site literacy plans or provided family literacy supports, you do not have to complete this section. If you have, though, you will share the site names and CDS codes, as well as the goals and/or actions of the school and family literacy plans you have developed, the intended metrics to measure progress on these goals and actions, the number of family literacy outreach specialists and the languages that they speak, and the number of home visits, extended day events, summer events, and weekend events, as well as the number of families served at each. Finally, we will ask you about your local assessment data, including the local assessment used for each site. We are asking that you report beginning, middle, and end of year data for these local assessments as they are available to you. We are asking you to report on the percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards according to your local assessment data. We need the data broken down by subgroup, including African American students, American Indian students, Asian students, English learner students, Filipino students, foster youth, Hispanic students, homeless students, Pacific Islander students, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, 2 or more races, or whites. Now let's take a moment for a walkthrough of the spreadsheets. Here is the spreadsheet that we'll use to collect site level data. This first sheet contains the instructions. Note the links to different cohorts. You can find your cohort there if you're not sure which you're in. As mentioned, the site level spreadsheet is broken out by cohort. So for cohort 1, we have 3 sheets: funding spent, literacy plans, and assessment data. Let's look at funding spent. In this sheet, you'll list the site names, CDS codes, and the amounts of LCRS funds you've spent at each site for this reporting period. Next, let's go to literacy plans. Here, you'll also list the site names and CDS codes. Then you'll list the goals and actions and metrics used to measure progress for each site. Then for each site, you'll list the number of family outreach specialists and the languages that they speak, the number of home visits, extended day events, summer events, and weekend events, as well as the number of families served at each. Finally, assessment data. Again, we'll list the site names and CDS codes. You'll also list the local assessment you're using for each site and for the data you're about to report. Then we're asking for the percentage of your students at that site that are meeting or exceeding standards according to that local assessment for beginning, middle, and end of year. We know that some assessments might not have middle of year, so please just report what you have. This will be broken down by student group. Cohort 2 asks for the same things, just for that cohort. Thank you for taking the time to view our webinar on LCRS reporting requirements. Before we close out, I have a few resources to share with you. First is the LCRS program webpage at https://www.cde.ca.gov/ci/LCRS program.asp. Next are the 2 funding web pages for the first and second cohort. As I mentioned before, if you're not quite sure which cohort you're in, you can check these funding pages and see the lists of sites for each cohort. So for cohort 1, that's at https://www.cde.ca.gov/r14/litcoaches22results.asp. And then for cohort 2, it's at https www.cde.ca.gov/fg/fo/lit-coaches23result.asp. Thank you again for viewing our webinar and the reporting requirements. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at plio@cde.ca.gov.